This is your host, Shiloh Ekstrom, and you are tuning in to Grit and Grace. Real people, real conversations, and real grit. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for another amazing episode of Grit and Grace. I am Shiloh Ekstrom. We have an incredible woman, fitness professional, and all the things with us today. So I cannot wait to introduce you to our guest. I hope you have an amazing 4th of July and you're having another day off. I hope you get another day off. And when you see this, you had a great week. Let's get started. Okay, Brittany, I am so excited to have you on today because number one, you have been my personal trainer for quite some time now. We've walked through a lot of emotional experiences. You've walked me through a lot of my stuff, but also you help so many women. And I never knew this. I used to hire a lot of guy personal trainers, and there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. But when I've had 2 women personal trainers, and I will say that having a woman is just a different level and step up. And I got more results. I had better experiences quickly because the understanding of the woman's nutrition and body and needs. And I've always known that, but you have done some incredible things in the fitness space. You also promote wellness, and we love that. We can talk about that. We're going to share all your things at the end. But the other part of why I asked you to be on, and we were talking about it earlier, is let's just talk about relationships today. I think this is the relationship episode. So we're going to talk all about women's health and all the things because it ties into all this. Everything that we go through emotionally, and you have walked me through probably, I would say, one of the most challenging times of my life. And that's interesting because you came into my world at a challenging time and you've been a part of all the craziness over the last, I would say, 9 months. You've been through a lot of the shifts, but you actually came into my world right when I had quit drinking. And I was on that journey. And so all these things were shifting, and it was just an incredible time. And then God puts people in your path. And I know that you're a spiritual woman and you were placed in mine for a reason. And I think today is really special to me because I want to show a lot of other women, and although we have male listeners too, I want to show other women what it's like to have a friend that's a woman who's powerful and successful, and to have that support system. And you've been a part of my support system, and why and how that's so important. So Brittany, without further ado, say hello to our listeners. They are watching, they are listening. Let's introduce you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your background. Let's just go over it in a nutshell. Let's go.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Brittany Jones. And I've been in the fitness industry, I'd say 20 years now. So I'm 36. I started at 16 working with people. I've always had a heart for humans my whole life since I was very, very young. I knew that I would always be in a career. I've always had people around me my whole life, but I've also been that independent woman too, just like Shiloh, just like a lot of the listeners that we have on today, which kind of dive into that element a little bit, but I was a professional bikini and fitness competitor, and was also on the Australian Olympic developmental team working towards the 2000 Olympics. Had a lot of injuries, went through a lot of different, physical therapy, that kind of thing. And I was training 36 hours a week at 13 years old. And they wanted me to move another state away to train for the Olympics, and it consumed my whole life, which I loved gymnastics so much. But I sat down with my parents one day and they said, listen, if you're going to pursue the Olympics, this is what your life is going to look like for the next however many years, or if you choose to step away from it, this is what your life can look like. I was missing a lot of school because I was, training twice a day at a very young age. And started to retract a little bit. My teacher saw that I became a little bit withdrawn from friendships because I was tired. I was overworked at a very young age. And at first, way back when, I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. Going through the therapy that I had to go through with my training, And then within that time period, I also developed an eating disorder. And because we were pressured to have very strict and structured nutrition, I was one of the, believe it or not, bigger girls, tall, like height wise. I'm 5'2" now as a full grown adult, but I was still, which is very short, but I'm still was on the higher end of the spectrum. So they wanted to keep my nutrition lower to keep my growth stunted, for lack of a better term. I went to my teacher at school one day and I wanted to understand how to eat better. And this is back in the day where they were teaching the food pyramid. And so here's my teacher explaining to me, okay, you eat carbohydrates are for energy, right? You're talking to a 13-year-old. And in my mind, I'm like, it was back in the low fat when that started to come about, the low fat and all the sugar-free products. So I don't eat fat. I'm not going to get fat, right? Makes sense to a 13-year-old. And then your protein sprinkled in there somewhere. So here I am trying to understand how to eat healthy. And I'm eating bananas and cereal because I'm an athlete and I want energy. And I started to get tired and put on weight and felt out of control because I was listening to what an expert, somebody that I respected, taught me. And that was actually probably one of my biggest nudges into what I developed and what I teach today is having to go through and recover from an eating disorder. I was able to express what was going on to my mom. She took me to a nutritionist. And hindsight, now reflecting back on that, what she was teaching me is a big reason why I don't do macros, counting calories, that kind of thing. We sat down and she gave me a diet and told me to count things. And so I became obsessive compulsive in numbers. And so it was my mind. So it wasn't so much the food stuff anymore as it was, I was just over focused on the numbers and counting everything. Is it 3 hours yet? Which was not healthy. And so that rolled into how I evolved the program nowadays and teaching women to love their bodies, restructuring their lives to focus on goal setting first and foremost, and then teaching nutrition and then teaching the exercise aspect of things. So that's a little bit of the history of what nudged me into the career path that I've pretty much been in my whole life. And I don't see myself doing anything different, but the journey along the way has evolved significantly too. Yeah. It chose to not pursue the gymnastics any further. That was over in Australia. We moved to the United States in 2000 and I started competing in fitness and bikini competitions. I got my pro card at 18 years old. And in that time, the industry was much smaller. There was only a couple of categories. Women were trained by bodybuilders. And so there wasn't a whole lot of femininity in the sport yet. And I saw the need for the hair, the makeup, all the girly stuff. So I went to makeup school and I'm like, I'm going to create a business and fly around and do all of the makeup, the image consulting, that kind of thing. Hence where my company name Fit Images came from, is from way back then. And so at 18 years old, I was able to go travel around by myself, fly around and go to these shows and be hired by these girls while I was competing and training also during the week. I was able to embrace the feminine side of things. So I was an athlete my whole life and I had to learn, as women, we all need to be taught how to do those things. And then so from that day on forward, I created Fit Images, which embodied the whole woman and how I kind of viewed women. And it's just grown and thrived and evolved from there.
I love it. I have so many things to ask. Okay, so let's go backwards for a minute because there's a couple things I wanted to talk about. So absolutely incredible that you were training to be in the Olympics as a gymnast. Gymnasts are, okay, so I love gymnastics. I was a gymnast, but not in that realm, but I definitely loved it. I was just obsessed with it for many years of my life. And those athletes, what people do not understand, if you've never been in that world or understand what those gymnasts do, they get more injuries than a professional football player. They do. Mm-hmm. They, at young ages, these are kids. They're training at 3 years old, 4 years old, and it's intense. My daughter was in competitive gymnastics for 6 years, and when the pandemic happened and COVID, it was when we ultimately ended it because they did shut the gym down, and she had taken such a break that her body had gone into woman. She became a young woman, and truly her passion and desire, I think, a little bit left. She was exhausted, and that happens. Mm-hmm. That happens. It's a really grueling, it was 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6, and then competing on the weekends. So we definitely understand that world in our house. But, let's talk about the Olympics real quick. Let's go into a little bit of right now what's happening. How do you feel? And this is just putting you on the hot spot, but I do want to talk about it because I actually am kind of crabby about it. The runner who, because she thought that because she was up on the podium and they put the national anthem on, how insulting to her and things like that. Well, you are competing for the United States and you are in the United States. And this is the time. Now we can protest, we can do things, but this is not the time. And this is my opinion, and people don't have to like it. I really don't care that much, but I will give my opinion. You are competing for the United States. Therefore, you stand for your anthem and you respect it. Now, any other time, if you don't want to, you don't have to, but you're there representing your country, then represent it. I don't think people understand how serious that would be reprimanded anywhere else. There's countries that have murdered people for not getting first. I have a hard time with entitlement, and I have a hard time with people who've never ventured outside. And I'm not saying that she hasn't. And maybe she does have a valid reason to not want to do whatever she did. I think it actually made more people mad than people supported. What do you feel?
Well, this is a loaded question, but I'm glad to address it. We are very much patriots, my family. I love this country first and foremost. And this actually came up in church yesterday. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is a hot topic. I'll just give it to you straight. If you don't like this country and what it stands for, leave. Like, that's my belief, because there's plenty of other countries out there that accept people into their country very easily. If you don't like what this country has to offer, then feel free to move somewhere else, because we have the greatest country with the most privilege. We're in a generation, we are so privileged and so spoiled. And quite frankly, prior to the pandemic, I was already talking to my husband about, like social media, there's so many blessings to that and growth, and we just go so fast in the United States, but we miss that human connection. And I think we just get so consumed with, we got to keep up with the times or make more money and do this and do that, whatever else, that we all have to slow down and connect with people again. And so those that because we have so many luxuries too, we were just like given stuff hand over to fist and opportunities after opportunities. So people really need to sit and realize the giftings that we have on a daily basis, like school opportunities, work opportunities, opportunities within our community. And so when it comes down to it, we have to be so thankful and grateful for what we have in front of our face. And a lot of people are just blindsided by this fast lifestyle. And, like a lot of the bullying and the school shootings and those things that were going on pre-pandemic, guys, that comes down to disconnect in the home. That's my personal belief, is disconnect in the home, regardless of our relationship situation, because I've been there too, divorce-wise and whatnot. But still, as parents, we have responsibilities to sit with our kids, pay attention and engage, get off your phone. There's a time and a place for that. And there's a time and a place where you have to connect one-on-one with our family, with our friends. We get, the whole text messaging thing and social media sometimes connects people, but then it can also disconnect people as well. And I really have a lot of pleasure in getting on the phone with people nowadays. And everybody's always wants hugs and to be loved and that human connection. And that's one reason why I've really stayed in this industry throughout this time, where many people have shifted online, and we did to a degree. Yes, business-wise, you can create more income and create more speed within your business, but there will always be a need for that human connection. I can't compete, nor do I really want to compete with the big heavy hitters that have created these humongous online programs, because it's lacking the one thing that I personally think people need to have, that ultimate transformation. So, really, I know it's like a long-winded answer explanation to this runner, but I said at the end of the day, we're so lucky to be here in the United States, and you really choose. I'm not even a political person. You got to choose the dark side or the light side, and that's it. And, if you're struggling, then find a community of people that you look up to, that you admire, families that you look up to, and connect with them. It's so present here still in the United States, but you got to pick one side or another. It's not a left or right thing at this point.
It isn't. I love that. And I think your answer was perfect. I wasn't trying to put you on a total spot, but it is a hot topic. I mean, I do want to talk about it because I've stayed quiet. Here's the deal. We brought up a couple of key points. You said gratitude or lack thereof. I absolutely agree. I think in everything that we do, and now I'm not here to trash the runner. I do want to say this. I won't, because everybody has their reasons. What I feel is going to happen, and this is where it can be very sad. This person did work all her life to get to where she just was, right? I thought about that this weekend, and I'm like, I'm not going to go on this rampage or hate somebody. I don't. What I saw was, okay, you took a stand, but what you're not seeing is maybe everything you work for. Cancel culture works both ways. I do not think some people understand that. And I think what's sad about this is that there are two sides. That's dark and light. You are absolutely right. But there's a lot of people in this country who still love this country. And you went and you took a stance, and that's fine. But remember, there's consequences to everything, good and bad. And I think what made me sad this weekend is I'm like, what this woman doesn't realize, and she probably already is her career that she worked so hard for is most likely over, because nobody wants that. Sports have become a political place and a political playground, and it's failing. ESPN's numbers are the lowest they've ever been. People are not tuning in. People do not want to watch it. The minute they get political, guess who shuts off? Everybody. It doesn't even matter. People are exhausted. We want to watch sports. We do not need your political insight when you're playing baseball. Now, if you want to say something, fine, that's your choice. You have freedom of speech. I love it. And you can do whatever you want, but just know there's consequences to it. And all of sports are experiencing backlash. Basketball is major. Basketball numbers are dropping. People don't want to watch it. It got so darn political. And so we take that, I put you on the seat on the hot button. We talk about gratitude. I think take out that specific instance in general. People lack gratitude. In business, I see it all the time. I see people are like, they're demanding or they're struggling or they're stressed. And I'm like, are you listening to yourself though? You're not grateful for all these things right here, but you're instantly complaining about this. When I look at people who have every blessing in business, they have the opportunity, they have the support. They'll come to me like, all I ever wanted was support. But then they get it and they're like, but we didn't get this, we didn't get this. I'm like, but you are getting everything. You're getting all the support you need. You're getting love. You're getting, you're getting help. What isn't good in it? Sometimes I think people have to be reminded, hey, let's look at the blessings here, because there's so many. And the same goes with look at the blessings. But then the last word I heard you say was social media, but I'm going to say media. The shift was the massive amount of media pushing narratives and propaganda. And it's always been there. But we also are flooded with social media now, all the narratives and stuff that were already there. We could shut the TV off before, but now we're on our phones 24/7. It's right there. We get updates, notifications. Look what just happened. Everything is real time. We never lived like that. And now we live in a real time. We're getting the experience right now. We know everything that's happening right now. And that can affect us so severely, good and bad, emotionally, of what we allow. And when we take out the family dynamic, when we're sitting like this at the dinner table and nobody's talking to each other, you do get school shootings. You do get kids who are very, very withdrawn, sad. They don't have hugs. They don't. I remember I was the days of, and now this is aging me, Columbine happened the year I graduated. That was one of the first real-time events that I ever experienced. I walked into my best friend's house. We turned on the TV. It was everywhere. We watched that real time. And I just remember being so emotional about it and affected. We had school. We had to sit down in the gym the next day. I mean, we had total almost lockdown. We couldn't believe it happened. And when you really break it apart, these kids were screaming for attention. It was terrible. And we see kids screaming for attention all day long because this is all they do. And this is what the parents are doing. So I absolutely love that you brought that up. I think it's super important, but our emotional well-beings have been challenged greatly over the last year and a half. I mean, you take already challenging times to another level and you put people in pressure cookers and you watch what happens. And, you know, that leads into health. Okay. So then you talk about emotional health, and your emotional health is in a relationship with your physical health. Let's talk about that. Seriously, let's talk about it. Because I know you've gone through a lot of challenging times as well. And what would you say for women who might be struggling right now in maybe all areas that really do want to transform? And I don't mean bodybuilding. That it doesn't mean that. I think when women look at you and they look at me and sometimes like, oh, well, I can't do that. Yes, I'm talking about health, not bikini competitions. Now you can do that if you want. Let's talk about health. There's a very big difference.
Well, just to kind of tie in a little bit of what we were just touching on as far as blessings and gratitude into this element, there's so many people, including myself, that have gone through trials, tribulations, the layers and layers and layers, not realizing God's hand in those times, and to really sit and reflect on, man, when I was in the trenches, look what I was blessed with. Look what he did in my life to take me from point A to point B. And so many of us miss out on that joy and really the beauty in life of when you're going through those hard times. So I think you just get to a point. I know a lot of people, including myself, of Shiloh, how are you so just like incredibly strong and amazing? You keep going, going, is that you get to a point, it's not easier, but you become okay with the hard times because you know that God's directing you and he's got your back because you're faithful. He knows your heart and he's directing you in another direction. And so when we're in those struggles, including to the transformation aspect of things, that I say, I start with the goal setting stuff first. People are always like, but I want like this complicated diet and I want this like really intense training program. Like that's not what creates a transformation. And what people have known me for over the past, I'd say 10 years, I've really evolved my transformation programs because they stick. And I'd say a good 80% of my transformation programs, you talk to those people 5 years down the track and they still have kept that weight off because of what we planted here and in their heart. So I'll sit down and we'll talk about life stuff. People need coaches, not trainers. And that's a big difference between the two. And so we address very simple goals and structure, but starting with our daily habits. So anybody that's challenged or going through a struggling time, or where life is good and we're just like, you hit that wall and you go, well, I know there's something more and I need some momentum back. I always say, okay, go back to that goal setting again. People think of like, the big goals of this much money, this type of car or house, whatever. All that stuff's fantastic and definitely something you want to put into place. Vision boards, that kind of thing. But I really like to start with the day-to-day stuff. And, what kind of things on a daily basis do you need to address? And is your back bothering you? Do you need better sleep? How's your mood? Are you snapping at your kids? Write that stuff down. And then we write the positive element to that. That's where you're going to see changes in your transformation program in that first week. We need to see success to want to keep us going. But those small little things are really what controls your entire life and makes or breaks whether you hit those bigger goals. And my other first initial list, and this one actually gets a lot of people very emotional, but it's your recharge list. And I say, sit down and write down 10 things that make you happy, that cost very little money, that don't take a whole lot of time, that you can implement into your life on a daily basis that bring you peace and calmness to recenter and reset yourself. most people that are in this turmoil can't write down more than 3 things. And you go, oh, that's easy and that's dumb. But when you really sit with yourself and things like, when's the last time that you picked up the phone and called an old friend just to say hello? That joy and connection that you get just from, chatting with somebody that you love and you care about that you haven't, talked to in a while, or fresh flowers. We've all had that narrative of like, it's silly to spend $5, $10, $15 on these flowers that are going to die in 5 days. And our kids teach us so many lessons, really, and my oldest, a couple of years ago, when I was coming out of my divorce and going through it, I should say, we're at Trader Joe's. Mommy, can we get some flowers? Because I used to always have fresh flowers in the house, but, I was going through some financial challenging times. And again, sure, the narrative of like, I don't need to like waste $10 on getting these flowers. But because she was so excited about them and it made her happy, bought them anyway. Every time I walked in the door that whole week, it reminded me of the love from her and the joy that these kids have in their lives. Like, we need to be more childlike again. Lighting candles in the house, like sit down and like those things that make us feel like women, we don't do those things. Very seldom do we do those things. And they're the easiest things to implement back in our life, but we're so consumed with, but I got to do this and I got to pay these bills and I'm 50 pounds overweight. But you have to nurture yourself again and start with those baby steps along the way, that self-care aspect of things. So I say recharge list, write those 10 things down. Then you can get into your short-term goals and your long-term goals. And when it comes to physically changing your body, I say first thing to do, number one, I don't like weight goals. Never have, just like I don't like to count macros, calories, that kind of thing, out the window. If you want to weigh yourself in 3 months, fine. Like, do it after 3 months. But the magic number to transformations, I believe, is 12 weeks. Like, the first 4 weeks need to be focused on goal setting, changing your mentality, focus on habits. And yes, you're following a nutrition program, very basic, very structured. Again, primarily focusing on habits. The 4 to 8 week mark is when you start to see changes and things happening. And then that 8 to 12 week mark, your body's dropping and changing at that point. If you start with the goal setting side of things first, because by laying it out like that, you'll feel like you're accomplishing things. Like after the first week or so, you go, wow, like let me look at that initial list. My back doesn't hurt as much, or I'm not grouchy when I get up in the morning. Not, oh, I've only lost 1 pound. And that's where the self-care element comes in. When I eat like this, when I exercise, when I put myself as a number one priority, all this amazing stuff happens. And so anytime we get stuck in life, it's always back to those basics. Let me sit down with a piece of paper and pen and get back to that self-care first and foremost. And we can all implement these things in very, very easily. I have to gut check myself sometimes too. Like, I'm feeling a little scattered, go back and reset. So anybody that's battling in life at any stage, any season, we all go through seasons. We all do. But it says back to basics with your goal setting, your nutrition, and your training.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really important to note, so I've done so many different programs. I think I've done all the things in my life. I was that exercise freak and I did all the things. I've done every diet. I've done all the wrong things too. I had body dysmorphia at one point because I was training and I was cutting and I was so lean that anything after that was fat. Or anything after it was like, oh, that doesn't look good. And it took me years to like remember, like, hey, that isn't what you want here. And it's interesting because when I did join and do your program, number one, I love that it was a lot easier than most because I need super bare bone basics. I know what to do, but I need help. I needed that emotional support. And I did need a woman to help me like, hey, I'm missing something here because my body's not moving. I do all the things. Why isn't it changing? What's the problem? And it literally came down to like 3 supplements. I think there was 3 supplements we added. And in the first week when I added them, it's mind blowing that this happened. I'm going to sneeze. So if I sneeze, I'm sorry. So we added like vitamin D, vitamins. We had like 2 vitamins and something crazy. And in the first week, I remember I was like, what? Like all of a sudden I leaned out quickly because my body was going through the motions every day, but I was not getting what I needed nutrition wise. And it is not the same as a man. What a man would have told me would have never been that. That's not me. I mean, there's a lot of men who do understand nutrition for women too. I'm not going to put everybody down. I'm just saying the men I've worked with, they didn't. And so they would tell me what they would tell everyone. And I'm like, it's not a cookie cutter deal. Like, it's not going to work that way. My body is mine. And I needed different support. Plus I was going through major stress, and I still managed to see massive transformations. I still do. I got through some PTSD in the middle of it. Like, we were trying to train for photos. I remember I'm like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? I ended up gaining weight due to stress, and I got it off because I stayed calm and worked with you and my doctor, and we made sure I was hormonally okay. It's very interesting when you have a woman's perspective on nutrition, when you are a woman. Because, and I'm an aging woman, I'm officially aging, I'm 40, and everything changes. This year was so many shifts. And so let's talk about hormones and some of that. You know, we talk about the emotional part. That's huge. It's huge. I will tell anyone, you need support. You do need help. I mean, you've got to find people to be in your corner. Faith is everything. God is everything. It got me through the worst part of my year. It really is. So I will not ever downplay that. That is the reason I have this show. That is the reason I got through this. And people still think, oh, you look so great, or, oh, you look so happy. You know what? In general, I am happy. I have bad freaking days. And you said it too. It's not that you don't have bad days. It's not that you don't go through hell, but it's like that footprints in the sand. You know, where were you when on those hardest times? I was carrying you. Absolutely. And so he's got your back. And I think it's just really important to know that you need to have faith. Then you need to have support. You cannot do things alone. So stop thinking you can. I don't care if you're a power woman or whatever. You need other women. So get other women. If you don't have them, you can get them. Me and Brittany are some of your women. We're your women. But there's a lot of great women that want to support other power women who understand it and get it. And you are human. So hormonally, I started losing my hair this year. That was a challenge because I went from a way up and way down stress levels. And so my body kicked into a premenopausal, which I was heading for anyways, but it kicked it in really quick. So that was challenging for me. Let's talk about women. And there's a lot of women 40 and over that listen and watch. What would you say about hormones and transformations? Because I think a lot of women forget about that. And it's a big, big, big factor.
Well, it's funny, I touched on it just a little bit, but the weight aspect, and that's another reason why I say do not weigh yourself, because ladies, every 4 weeks, when you're in those younger years, you have a menstrual cycle. So yes, our weight shifts like leading up to that week. So if we're weighing ourselves every week, and we started our transformation programs, most women actually start their transformation programs, believe it or not, right around the time that they're cycling, because that's when we feel so horrible about ourselves and we feel heavier. And then so you take that initial weight, and then, going forward, if you're in that habit of weighing yourself every week, I'm losing weight. And as soon as you feel that momentum is going, guess what? That next 3 weeks is coming, and you're going into that week prior to. Mm-hmm. So that's why I really say stay away from the scale. If you want to weigh yourself on week 1 and week 12, just for the sake of, I've dropped 10 pounds, great. But really stay away from the scale outside of that. I always do visualization pictures over the scale for that primary reason. But this is where we really do have to give ourselves some grace, because we're not going to outwork it. And when it comes to hormones, you're going to have those shifts. That's completely normal. And so just talking about regular menstrual cycles, we need to be aware of our cycles. There's actually an excellent book, which I wish I would have read much earlier on, called Do Less. And it explains, this includes women that are in that menopausal time period, that over the course of 4 weeks of every month, you have a week where you have that outward energy. And that's the week that we get that momentum going. We get our schedule down. We're working out. Like, we feel great. We want to take our pictures and do, jump on all of our videos. That's our like shining week. And as women, we go, man, I finally have my schedule down. I've got this momentum. I'm going to continue it going. And then we have a downshift after that, because you have a week where you go, it's a little bit of a quieter week. And you kind of go inward, and this is not particularly in the right order necessarily, but we have these different weeks where you'll have a more creative week where your brain's really functioning on like your ideas and connections. And that's where you want to pick up the phone and talk with people and go through that creative week. And we have our week, premenstrually, where we just want to go completely inward. And that's when you don't feel like being out there in the public eye and doing all of that. But we hold as women, until I actually knew this, we have these expectations, especially when we're in the workforce with men, because men don't have those same cycles. And so there's that battle there. But once we learn to embrace the outward weeks, schedule all your stuff on those weeks that really complement it, and you'll feel like you're achieving more. So you allow yourself to naturally flow with life, and you're not stuck in your head as much at that point. And so again, it's in the relation to the moon cycles. Mm-hmm. So it's something that I wish I would have understood earlier. But it makes complete sense. As women, we're meant to go and flow and nurture, and God's created us just like that in his perfect image. And that's where those hormones come into play. And so, women need to understand that there's beauty in every season that we're in. And the more that we allow ourselves to just flow through those naturally, and you can have additional support and things like that too. But really, I think the mental, emotional aspect of it makes it easier or harder to navigate through those seasons. So you're really embracing that self-care element first and foremost. And then when it comes to even like hormone support, there's a lot of natural stuff that's on the market, but your foundation first and foremost, addressing your nutrition, addressing your exercise, addressing your sleep. Then if you feel the need, or if you're working with a doctor, I recommend going to more of a natural doctor myself. There's some supplements after that can help naturally balance things, but address your foundation first before anything else. Because if you start to throw in hormones on top of, ill food, not exercising, which, obviously leads to poor sleep as well, you're setting yourself up for an absolute disaster at that point, and just piling in artificial hormones on top of that. So, so always address the basics in everything we do.
Absolutely. And that was important to me. I never like to screw with my hormones, because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a nightmare. We've talked about that. I'm like, I don't want to add anything. And I panicked. But I finally found a woman who specializes in women's hormone and aging. And she put me on a straight up low dose, but that's after she tested my numbers. And and obviously she's like, you're in great shape. You do everything right. Your diet's perfect. Your lifestyle's perfect. Now we have to fix this, because this is the one thing. And it was affecting my sleep. There's things that go along with it. So maybe you are trying, and maybe your diet is really good, and you are working with a great trainer, and you do all the things. Then you got to get to somebody who's smart. And I do recommend a naturopath too. I prefer, so I'm not telling you to just go to any old doctor, because your regular doctor does not know this. Please do not just jump into a family practice. I'm not being mean. They're just not trained in it. Women, go to a specific woman nutritionist or doctor that knows what she's doing, and make sure you do your due diligence on that. I would really say that, because it took me a long time to find somebody I trusted who actually knew what she was doing, so I didn't get all messed up and then have these crazy moments and ups and downs. All right, so one thing I absolutely loved about your program that I want to talk about, because it's cool, is not only do you have an app, but you have a really cool app that is updated all the time. And I think it's important. In this day and age, people want simple, they want fast, they want instant. But not only do you offer you, which is great because you're always interacting, and that's great, you have a really easy way to keep track. And I was really surprised that I did less and I got better results. So as we kind of go in the end here, and we're talking kind of more about your business and the structure, you have an amazing app. You've got a really great setup. Let's talk about, if somebody wants your services, what do you do? right away? We talked about kind of making those lists, but like, let's talk about all of it.
Really comes first and foremost with people. I actually like to chat about their life. I really dig in deep, and I want to hear about their history, where they're at mentally and emotionally. I'm not the right trainer for everybody because I like to go for the guts. I like to dig out the old stuff. I like to figure out, why are we in this space and what's the ultimate goal? So I like to really connect and ask a lot of questions and really understand what we need to put together, what area we need to focus on. And that's different for everybody. Yes, in every transformation program, we address the nutrition and we address the training and we address the goal setting, but it's how much emphasis do we need to put on what area? And having that complete transformation is balancing all those three things out. And so if they have a good training program right now that they enjoy and they have an okay, nutrition, then I'm like, let's put, more focus on our nutrition right now. We can mix things up with your training, but let's address this, dial this in first, and then we can ramp up your training. And so I just progressively kind of, address one area at one time and figure out what needs to really be molded and focused on first and foremost. So what I always say with the exercise side of things is we take you from what you have been doing and slowly work you up from there. Talk about what areas that we want to specifically address, body parts, that kind of thing, what works for your lifestyle, because you have to have a program that's not stressful, especially as women. Yes, we have our, really excited week where we want to dig in. It doesn't matter what it takes. I'm going to do anything you tell me to do, but be realistic too, because we all have our week. So you want to set people up that they feel like they're achieving what you've laid out in front of them. Because that emotional side of things of, yes, I got my workout done. Yes, I did it. That transforms your body so much more than just the actual exercise itself. Same thing when it comes to nutrition. So the focus with the nutrition is back to basics. And the three things I always address first is packing and prepping your food, eating every 3 hours, and drinking your water. Now, there's a lot of programs out there that have these pretty menus and all these different recipes and this and that. Yes, ideally, that's wonderful. If you have a chef or if you have a time to make all these different meals and go grocery shopping and cook every single meal at home, absolutely, that's a really great program, but it's not realistic for most of us. So resetting your habits first and get that down. So I always keep food very, very simple and basic, somewhat following the same plan until we have packing and prepping down, eating every 3 hours, and drinking your water. We want to nourish and feed our bodies to speed it up, not restrict calories and just kill your energy levels, because you won't stick to that long term. And again, that's the key to the absolute long-term success, is addressing those habits. Also, when you feel like you get a little derailed with your nutrition, you have to address pretty much the same thing. Sit down and go, man, I would just ate a whole box of Oreo cookies. What happened? Are you eating frequently enough throughout the day? Yeah. Did you eat enough? Or are you dehydrated? 99% of the time, it's one of those three things that we slipped up on because we got busy with life. But the beauty in reflecting on that is, hey, I have control over that. So I wasn't bad and undisciplined and all these emotional things that happen in our head when we feel like we got derailed. We go, okay, next time, then I just have to make sure that I'm eating every 3 hours. When we fall off track, it's your body's emergency signal to, hey, listen, I'm super hungry, or you haven't fed me enough, or you need to nourish me. That's where we get out of control. Mm-hmm. It's not stress eating, emotional eating. It's not all those different things. It's when we have stressful days, we don't drink enough water. We're not feeding our body consistently enough. And so by the time you sit down at night, you've left 6-8 hours in between some of your meals and you go, I'm hungry. Mm-hmm. So the beauty in that is you go, wow, that completely eliminates the eating disorders. That's what I had to learn and understand is it's a different kind of control by self-care.
Obviously, I love your program. It's simple. It's doable for anybody. I looked at your photos from the 4th, by the way. You look incredible. You have babies and she's a real woman. She's not this, oh my gosh, she's this bodybuilder and things like that. No, she's got real things, real life. She has a husband, an incredible husband, incredible kids, and she's busy. So the nice thing about working with Brittany is that she's real. She's honest. She knows what it's like to navigate all the things, be busy, and she creates a program that works. Okay. It works hands down. If someone says, how did you get your body to where it is right now? This is the best shape I've ever been in my whole life. And it is a lot due to Brittany. Obviously I did it too, but Brittany's program made it doable for me, and to keep going through crazy times. And, you know, I was talking to you at the beginning of the show, and before we wrap, I have to say your friendship means everything to me. And, you know, I had a tough day yesterday. It was the 4th. It was my first 4th of July without my kids. And, you know, without my kids, without my dogs, without the lake, without the friends. And I'll be honest with you, I was a hot mess express. I had every emotion. I cried, I got crabby, I got angry, I was flipping out, and then I was sad again. And, you know, it was interesting because I prayed all morning. And then I decided to get up, because there's nothing worse to do than to sit in it. And it's interesting because I know that you've gone through challenges in your life, you know, emotional stuff and relationships. And it was one of those moments where, even though I felt like I was spiraling, I think you can relate to this, I still knew I was okay. I still knew. Like, even though I was really low, I'm like, this is one of the lowest moments I've felt in a very long time. At the end of the day, I still knew it would be okay. And what did I do? I talked to my mother, which I normally never would have done. And I reached out to 2 people, my brother and one of my great friends, because I knew that I had to ask for help. And, you know, for women out there, and this is not about personal training, this isn't about the program, you know, for women out there who have ever gone through traumatic times or sad times, other than God, which is the most important thing, what would you tell somebody who might be really struggling right now? And
I'm glad that you one thing that I've even had to, and I know you've gone through the exact same transition, is I've always been, like, my husband still refers to me as that boss babe my whole life. So we're the ones carrying everybody else along. And recently, I'd say within the last few years, I've had the opportunity to connect with other women on this level. And I don't know if just because we're in that season and we're older and wiser, but holy cow, like, having those women that you admire and that you look up to, and you realize that you don't have to carry all this yourself, is, yes, find your tribe, and find your tribe of women that you admire. And, you know, don't go and search for friends that are going through the same stuff and that are still stuck in that space. Go seek friends that have been through it, conquered it, and let them help lift you up. We don't have to carry these burdens alone. And so I really emphasize, like, that's probably one of the biggest differences that it's made in my life, especially now that I am married, and even prior to, you know, coming out of my last marriage. In that time period, is having those strong female relationships is very, very new to me, and incredibly empowering, because, like, women like that don't want to stay stuck in those spaces, but we have the narrative in our head of, I don't want to bother them with my negative stuff. But women love to be there and love to nurture, especially for other women that want to break down those barriers or break through. It's not draining for others if you're not staying stuck in that space, when you genuinely take their advice and their friendship to elevate you, to rise up and to conquer those things that you're going through. So I really encourage everybody that are stuck in that space, that are independent women, which is probably a very large majority of women that do watch your podcast, listen to your podcast, is find your tribe. It's such a beautiful gifting and blessing that I'm so thankful for, especially with your friendship. And, you know, I love you to the moon and back, and I really appreciate all of the interactions and conversations that we've had.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of fun times too. There's a lot of laughs. Like, sometimes we're crazy and we're like, I know this is crazy, I'm going to laugh about this one day, but I'm telling you right now, I'm having a meltdown. Like, I do this. But here's what happened in this year too. And as we close, this message is for everyone. I don't know if it was the pandemic. I don't know what shifted, but I finally got the right people in my corner. I never surrounded myself with the right people. I was always surrounding myself with these masculine, like, all independent people who didn't want to offer that support. And if I did get vulnerable, I was a burden. And when you surround yourself with people like that, you do start to shy away. You don't create relationships. And I started to do that in my life over the last 10 years. And what I found in this last 9 months is I stopped surrounding myself with people that didn't always have the right intentions with me. And I started putting myself in a vulnerable position with powerful women. I stopped shying away from powerful women like you. I started to allow them in because I'm like, no, these women get it. And I need to open my world to them because I need these women. And so as we close this episode, I encourage everybody, find your women. She said it, find your tribe, but find your women. Women, find your women, and men, yes, find your men too, because you need your guys too. And men need to support each other better. I'm going to be honest with you. Men need to come in and be better. Drop some of that ego, drop some of the masculine, some of it. We need our men to be masculine, but be supportive to your men because men need support and love just as much. I think even more. I don't think they get it enough. And women, we need to build each other up even more and be that friend. And Brittany is that friend to me. And I'm so grateful she came on. So we're going to make sure everyone gets your links. If you want to work with Brittany, I highly recommend it. Or if you want to see if that's a good fit, you're going to get with Brittany after this. We're going to make sure you have all the information. We're going to post it below. Brittany, we're so grateful you came on. I'm grateful. My transformation this year has been incredible. You are a massive part of it. I'm so grateful for our friendship and everything you do. I hope you and your family have an awesome week. And everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Grit and Grace. I am Shiloh Ekstrom, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to and watching Grit and Grace. This episode will be continued next week. Subscribe to us on Spotify or Apple iTunes to listen and download the Lux TV app to watch anytime, anywhere.
Now, glutathione is a big word, but it's the body's own master antioxidant. So it's a scavenger for free radicals, for bacteria, and what's relevant now, viruses. This is new to the marketplace. There's no other product on the market that has the ingredient NACET.
And basically NACET increases the production of that glutathione that is in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system and keep it strong. Elevated sense of well-being. Supports muscle strength and endurance. Cognitive function. Powerful liver support. Energy. Helps blood sugar regulation. Superior bioavailability of key ingredients.
One of your best defenses against COVID is a strong immune system. Taking GSH Plus as a daily supplement does all that. And now we have the product out on the marketplace.